Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Yoav Funk, Shellac. Didn't we deserve a look at the way you really are? No other context to this one. We're going to dive straight in. We have a 12-minute track ahead of us. Let's dive in. See what Shellac is bringing to the table today.
For decades, you paraded as a crazy bitch. Wretchedness, your lucky charm. Hung on a bracelet, displayed on your arm.
I'm excited to see where this goes. This is a really long intro. Even the words are gone. Oh. It's like they teased variation and then walked it back. Okay, so it's just a slow burn. We are gonna go somewhere. The drum part's changed. The bass kick is following the bass guitar. We've lost the syncopation against the snare that we had at the end, the beat 3 there. There's variation on that snare hit too. It's not always on beat 3. I think that this is mostly recorded live, like one take, rather than splicing together takes to get a perfect bar and then repeating that. It's just slight imperfections This is a particularly trying song right here. Oh, it's the vocals. I do wish the drums were produced just a little differently. That snare is grating. But I am glad that we got rid of the tom run leading up to it, because I wasn't a fan of the production on that either.
Caught a glimpse of you.
Too much treble on the drums in general. Just too sharp, too abrasive. The volume contrast is nice. Not a big fan of the tone of the drums though, in general. It's the toms, it's the snare. They all sound very fatiguing at high volume. All right. Those are my thoughts. Catch y'all later. What do you even say to this? My first gut reaction, especially 6 minutes into this track, I'm thinking, okay, this is a joke request. Whether it's intentional and the requester knows I hate heavy repetition, or maybe I don't recognize the name as a requester. They're not one of the usuals, so maybe they're not as familiar with me and my biases. Maybe they really like this track. I don't know. It's like, what can I add as a music analyzer, someone who's going to bring experience composing and performing and understanding music theory? What can I do through this to add on to someone's understanding of this track? And I think that's what I keep coming back to. Like, why would this be submitted? But that's a gut reaction. That's a knee-jerk reaction right there. And I think the more important question isn't why would this be submitted to me, because that's very personal and kind of small, narrow-minded. It's why would Shellac create this? What is the author intention here? And I think that's worth interrogating, something to dig into. What is this track saying? My experience with it was not good. I don't think I can under or oversell that. I did not enjoy my time with this song, and it's not my cup of tea at all. But that doesn't mean that it lacks purpose, weight, thematic resonance. And I think especially for a song like this, if you hear something that just utterly and completely bounces off of you, it's really worth interrogating what that song is trying to do. At least for me. I'm not saying that you should go out and every song that you hate, drill down and figure it out and understand it. At the end of the day, usually the goal of people listening to music is to find enjoyment. Whether you find that enjoyment because it's fun and digestible pop beat music and it makes you happy, or you find the fun because it's complex music and you love complexity and you just love the ways that it engages your brain and forces neurons to fire. At the end of the day, music and art in general is magic. Someone put a bunch of sounds together and you listen to it and it makes you feel something. I mean, that's kind of like spells right there. It's wild. It's very cool. And if you listen to something and you just hate it, okay, move on. But I do think it's worth drilling down, for me at least, and figuring out why was this created? How can I understand this better? Because usually when I don't like something, it's a lack of understanding, not a lack of skill, integrity, or intention that went into the work itself. I just put a lot of weight on myself to say something important about this track. But I'm going to be honest, I'm winging it here. Pure improv, because I have not much to go on coming into this analysis segment. What is going on here? We have the lick. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. It gives us this nice 3/4 cadence, and that is persistent through a vast majority of this track. We have subtle variation to that. Eventually, actually the drums right off the bat, like 2 minutes in, we have a bit of a bass kick syncopation against a snare hit on 3, whereas 1 and 2 are primarily hi-hat, closed hi-hat, very quiet closed hi-hat. Then the bass kick follows along with the bass, and eventually we have this cool do-do-do-do-do, this run-up on the bass, and then we don't hear that again for several minutes, but it is there. We have guitar sounds that kind of come in and play something interesting-ish. Interesting by contrast. by nothing else. There was nothing and now there's something. That is interesting, even though the first few things the guitar played was noise, something approaching melody, but never quite lands it. We have rising and falling volume on the drums in particular. We have a big section with drums and bass and the guitar all kind of coming together on this rhythmic device with shifting pitches. We saw this right at the end as well, a nice callback to like 6 or 7 minutes into the song. We have ba-dum ba-bum, ba-dum ba-bum, ba-dum ba-bum, a little bit lower, and we kind of keep bouncing back and forth. First one's higher, then we hit the root, then it's lower than the root, then it's lower than the root, then it's lower than the root. And that's the pattern. I tried to point it out at the end and then they didn't repeat it, so I didn't really have a chance to showcase that. But that's pretty cool. We have a descent pattern in here. A vast majority of the notes of the riff are the same, but the final note every other time or every other bar is different and it's descending. And that's kind of it. The song has a little bit of rising and falling, sometimes hitting new peaks, but also just kind of leveling out. A very mellow track overall. And occasionally we have vocals, which are spoken word, but not in a speech cadence, also not really in a singing cadence. There's just a lot of dead air between phrases, not even sentences. You'll get 2 to 3 syllables and then space. Several bars of space and then a couple more syllables. So the song is primarily focusing on theme, heavy theme. This, again, a vast majority of this track is this one lick, but variations on the theme, both in how the drum rhythmically plays around with the theme. We have variations as far as dynamics, layers, how many instruments are in on the theme, texture, the sounds of the instruments, and volume, the volume of the instruments. We also have slight variations of the lick in the bass line, as we have the do-do-do-do-do, the rising pattern, but also the expansion of it into the descending pattern that we have with the expanded form of the riff that takes up 8, it's got to be 8 bars rather than just the 1 bar idea. And we have movement within this. So we have theme, we have variation, we have dynamics, but we also have minimalism. Minimalism, I think, is the core ingredient here. It is both not a lot going on, so we only have 2 instruments primarily throughout this entire track, but also not a lot going on. Compositionally, there is one 3-beat lick that dominates a vast majority of this track. So it is minimalist in composition and minimalist in production. The two of these do lend themselves well, though, to trance, meditation. It is very easy, I will speak from experience here, zoning out to this track, just emptying the mind. Not a lot of music does this for me, but just the two ends of the spectrum, incredibly, well, not necessarily incredibly complex. I guess it's just one end of the spectrum then. It's repetition, whether it is complex repetition, like something Meshuggah would do, or minimal repetition, like we see here. Because at the start of the song, I'm just annoyed. 2 minutes in, and it's one idea. It's one bar repeated over and over and over, and I hate repeated ideas, especially repeated short ideas like this. It just really gets on my nerves. I've made this comparison before, but it's like a kid just going, Mom, 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 mom. And it's just like, it starts grating and it gets worse and worse. And it's just like, it becomes a sound that I associate with being annoyed, and that makes me more annoyed, and it just stacks. That's what this song felt like for me for 120 seconds at least. But then it just becomes this background sound. And then it just kind of is. And it's easy to kind of forget the song's there at all. Then it does something unexpected. Small variation, a small change. A guitar is starting to materialize in the corner and then never quite comes into form and fizzles out. It's gone again. Are you even sure you heard a guitar at all? The bass does a cool little thing, and wow, okay. Let's see where you go with this. Nowhere. We're back to the way things were. So you zone out again. Wait for the next anomaly. And to be honest, a lot of this track did feel like anomalies. Sections of the song that didn't conform to everything else for a brief moment before lining back into the expected phrase. And I think it's interesting that by the time the track was over, I stopped seeing it that way. I can see the larger picture. I can see how we got to where we finished from where we started. I could see the general trajectory of everything and how everything worked together. It's still full of these deserts, these sections where it's just the bass riff with the bass kick playing the same rhythm and a snare on 3. But it's also more than that, too. It just doesn't be that for very long, but it does have these moments of, well, from my perspective anyways, genius. If we can call the expanded section where the guitar comes in as well and the riff incorporates more pitches, the chorus does feel inspired. It feels like the natural progression for the simplicity that has dominated the song. But why does it feel that way? I can't speak for everyone else. Maybe no one else see this correlation, but to me, it's about taking something incredibly minimal to the point of barely even registering as a musical idea. It is a building block at best, and building something out of it. I kind of liken it to, I don't know if you've seen videos online where somebody's given an incredibly simple shape, maybe just a square or a rectangle or a couple of simple shapes just kind of placed around a paper, and then the artist will go in and fill in everything else and connect it into something amazing. They saw something beyond this minimal, or maybe they saw it from the other perspective where these simple shapes could be parts of something larger. That's what I get here. This bass line isn't something most people would make a song out of because by itself it's not interesting, but it is a solid jumping off point. We have a strong cadence, we have a strong-ish element of harmony. We understand how these couple of notes play off of each other. We can see how we can expand the chordal area, we can expand the rhythmic area, and you can feel this foundation, this blueprint within the chorus. It's still there, it's just the chorus is the good version of this riff. The bass line is a first draft. The chorus itself, with all the instruments working together with the size and the grooviness and the catchy riff, is the final product. But I think this also has its own trappings as well. Why do I view it this way? Well, because most music isn't minimal. Because most good music, or I suppose a better phrase would be popular music, doesn't sound like the flat bass line idea. It sounds more like the catchy riff. Part of that is people tend to like more dynamic ideas, in general, like lowest common denominator kind of concept. Alarm clocks, most people aren't going to find music out of, but you could make music out of an alarm clock. In fact, we have done that recently with clipping. To be able to find something larger out of something mundane is, I think, the job of an artist. But what if you make a song out of the mundane, out of the simple, out of the repetitive? If we took any catchy melody or sick guitar riff or incredible drum part, one thing I talk about often, especially with melody, is key notes. The notes that are on strong beats that are emphasizing strong pitches within the chord. These are necessary pillars to building good, traditionally good at least, melodies, but also catchy melodies. Without these, your riff or your vocal melody is going to sound weaker. It's not going to be as memorable. So if we strip out all the other notes and we take just these key notes, that explains why the melody is strong. These keynotes then become the foundation, the blueprint. You expand from here. That's what we're seeing here. We're just never expanding it out, at least not for a majority of this track. This is a song based on blueprint. The track is called "Didn't We Deserve a Look at the Way You Really Are?" This idea of dressing down a melodic idea. The chorus to this track is great. It's catchy, it's groovy, it's got cool pitch movement on it. Production-wise, I'm still kind of iffy on this, but I think it's more of a bias thing. But that riff has solid keynotes to it. It is cool, but the cool is all the flourish. It's good because of the foundation. And if you strip out the flourish, you get the bass line. That, in a sense, if you strip back the parts that make it flashy and look at just why it's solid, kind of is what it really is. A look at the way the riff really is. And that is the way most people are. We wear a mask, we get dressed up, we put on makeup, we act and look and perform a certain way in the presence of others, but when we're alone, we're just our base, our root self. What do we look like when we take the flourish off? When we're by ourselves? And is that not a majority of our time? I don't know if that's necessarily what they're going for. We still have the lyrics to look at. But I know that's the best read I've got right now. To dig into this, what seems shallow, and find some depth within it. Let's hit some lyrics, see if that can help point us in any direction to what their authorial intent might have been if it wasn't what I've been touching on in the last few minutes. The lyrics add a little bit more and might explain some of what the song is doing, but I do feel like I'm going to inject a little bit of my bias into this regardless. I think it's maybe what they're going for. The lyrics are about somebody away from everyone else. It talks about someone who is wretched, that the wretchedness itself is their lucky charm that they hang on a bracelet displayed on their arm. They're just a toxic person and they're proud of it, or at least they're openly and consistently toxic to other people that it seems like they're proud of it, or at least a core part of their personality. It says, "But all we saw is not how you are. I caught a glimpse of you in an unself-conscious smile, revealing yourself. Didn't we deserve a look at you the way you really are?" I have seen you when you're not performing for others, is what this song boils down to. Now, it doesn't pass any judgment. It doesn't say anything about the person's self-image. It doesn't have any perspective of, oh, you know, they're toxic, they're a bully to other people because they secretly hate themselves or anything like that. It simply says that I've seen you when you're not being this way, when you think no one's looking. That's it. No judgment passed. Just, I see you. With the facade stripped away. To me, I get a small implication that this person isn't interesting when they're not being mean. That they're boring. That if you strip back the noise of their personality that they project, there's nothing underneath. I think that's what they're trying to say, which is why there's so much repetition of a really simple idea in here. But again, I may be injecting my bias into that because I found this song to be rather boring, only interesting when it was loud and noisy. Despite the fact I wasn't a big fan of the production when it increased its volume, I still found that to be more interesting than when it wasn't. So maybe a little mix of authorial intent and death of the author here in my read. Does this make it a good song? Well, I think that depends. Casually, I don't think many people are going to enjoy this. Artistically, though, thematically, I find this to be incredible. This is art, not music for consumption, not music as a commodity. Music to describe and tell a story in a way that only music can. And the fact that I picked up on any of this whatsoever, and then the lyrics kind of pointing in that same direction tells me that they're doing something right. That what they wanted to say is being conveyed somehow. Maybe it becomes clearer on a subsequent listen. That is one of the things with trying to fully understand a track after just listening to it once. There's so many details I'm missing out on, although something tells me I picked up on most of the details of this track. It's rather minimal, but it's still something that the longer you have exposure to it, the more you might understand it. One of my I'll just say a good example of this. I forget the name of the piece, but it's just a white canvas. I've seen it dismissed a lot. In fact, I've dismissed it myself in the past, but I think it's really interesting to see it in person, to spend time with it, to look at just white. It may seem simple and irrelevant based on its simplicity, or maybe based on its lack of ideas, but that's surface level. It's not actually what went into the art, and it's not what people are going to get out of the art if you actually decide to engage with it. And I think this song kind of sits on that same level, not quite necessarily being the sonic equivalent of that of Blank Canvas. Like, you know, John Cage's 433 is probably the closest equivalent to that visual work. But I do think that this hyper focus on minimalism is going to be something that most people are going to pass over, but is actually worth digging into. Anyways, these are my thoughts on Didn't We Deserve to Look at You the Way You Really Are by Shellac. What did you think of this track? Is there anything that you'd like to add to what I've said? Or, I don't know, you have your own perspective or opinion on this? Did you enjoy this? I'm sure there are people out there who really love this. I do think it's going to be more of a niche enjoyment, but I'm sure there are people out there. Let me know. Add your thoughts and whatever else you'd like to add into the comments section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my server, to my music, the Discord server, something else too. There's a lot of ways to support the channel. I mean, just go look. There's like, you see all the buttons there? There's a lot. Go check them out. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.